Welcome to another video, guys. Look at the hopeful expression on this poor carrot man's face. This is the expression of a 25 NL player hoping to move up to 50 NL, hoping to have a winning year, a winning month, and hoping to have a winning session. When this carrot man sits down to play, he is committing the first of the 3 deadly poker sins. He wants to win. That's right, the first of the deadly poker sins is wanting to win. I wrote about this in an article this morning, Pete's Weekly, episode 15. If you've not read Pete's Weekly, you can subscribe by going to the bottom of carrotcorner.com, filling out your email address. You'll also get access to a free video that's 40 minutes long called The Beginner Blueprint, which will tell you what to fix first in poker. So get all of that good stuff for free. But let me tell you about this first sin, wanting to win. And you might not believe me that this could be a bad thing, but this is an obstacle when it comes to poker. It really is. It gets in your way in the short term. Wanting to win a pot can lead to you investing money without assessing whether it's the right option. If you want to win in a session, that can lead you to playing too long, playing your C game, chasing losses. And it really is a misguided determination to try to achieve the impossible, to try to impose your will against variance. You can't fight variance in the short term. You can't control whether you're going to win a hand or lose a hand. So here's a better way to think about it. Ask yourself, what would it be like if I worked on a poker EV conveyor belt? If I was a robot on that belt, programmed to do the best they could with the hands that came their way. I quote from the article, try to see yourself as an EV worker on a production line. The hands come your way and your job is to put the highest EV bolts into the right sockets before sending the hand on its way. Whether the hand falls into the losing hand bucket or winning hand bucket is not your concern. How good a job did you do? You only had one job. So in other words, check in with yourself. When you sit down to play a session of poker, are you hoping for good things to happen? Are you ready to be completely objective? Are you prepared to just look at a hand, do the best you can with it, and make peace with the consequences? Or is losing a pot going to ruffle your feathers really early on? Is it going to upset you? Is it going to change the way you're going to play? Are you going to feel like the session was a failure if it doesn't go well? Are you going to feel like the session was a success because it was a winning session if it does go well? In the long term, this is a prison. Having this mentality actually sucks you into a frame of mind where you're at the mercy of the whims of variance and their erratic patterns or lack thereof. Variance is going to do all kinds of shit to you. It's going to make you feel like you're a genius and it's going to make you feel like you're an idiot. But if your goal is to win, you will constantly be swimming upstream. You will be fighting against it. I had a student send me a graph earlier, and I'm keeping the graph anonymous, and I don't think that they'll mind me showing this to you. This is what can happen to you in poker. This is what variance can do to you. This is a player who I worked with in the past, who played 400,000 hands in the last year or so. Maybe it's less than a year, actually, maybe like 9 months or something like that. And from here, they were actually up 60 buy-ins. I think I started working with this player just before this upswing or about at this upswing, like something like this would be my guess. And what happened was they ran good for a while, broke even for a little while, and then lost 120 buy-ins. Back to back. Like every day was a losing day. There were small periods of salvation. Everything was awful. Then they just upswung 120 buy-ins and got up to above their previous peak. There or thereabouts. This is the kind of shit that 6-max fast fold poker in aggressive games can do. This was like a 200/500 NL student. This is the kind of stuff it can do. And so when you sit down and you imagine one session or 1 hour or whatever that you play, it's a tiny little microcosm of this graph. And then you want to win over that period. You sit down and the driving goal at the back of your brain, whether you admit it or not, is that you'd like to win. Who the hell are you to want to win? You know? What an absurd thing to hope for. Now, it's okay to have an attitude where you would rather win than lose. It's impossible to be completely ambivalent. We can't be having this 120 by an upswing and just suddenly be like, I don't care. I get it. Winning can be fun. We can enjoy a winning session. But when we sit down to play, it's very important that we're ready to go into the role of being that robot on the conveyor belt, ready to put the right bolts into the right sockets and make the hand as good as we can make it. The hand is what it is. If you're dealt a piece of shit, you send a piece of shit down the conveyor belt. You've just tweaked it in the best way possible. If you get an amazing opportunity, it's your responsibility to try and maximize that opportunity in terms of EV. So sin number 1 is absolutely wanting to win. And all I'd like you guys to do is do that little meditation, that visualization next time you sit down to play. And remember that variance can do this to you. Go to primedope.com, plug in some stuff in the poker variance calculator there. You'll soon see what's possible if you're grinding online 6 max cash. And if you're a live player, you know, and you want to win when you sit down to play in a session, you're going to play like 4 hands. So you may as well start flipping coins and really hope that they're heads or something. Because like 1 session of live, okay, if you have an enormous win rate, like 70 BB per 100, you're at a table with 6 drunk whales, maybe it's different. But the average live session, it's nothing. It's a tiny, tiny fraction of hands, and it takes many of those for variance to even out. So remember that too. Okay, let's move on to the second deadly sin of poker, which is quite related, and it is not wanting to lose. This guy does not want to lose. Okay, he's already really started losing because he's lost his tip, I guess you would call it. He's a carrot man, but he's more towards the carrot than the man side. Usually they're closer to man than carrot. This one is way on the carrot end of the spectrum. AI is sick, by the way. Sick in the head. I didn't draw this. Not that good at drawing. Not wanting to lose. So let me just read to you a bit of this article that I wrote today. When losing presents itself as a looming demon, casting a shadow of not okay against the wall of your mind, you will be paralyzed by dread. A pot getting big can trigger a fight, flight, or freeze response. And now suddenly, you don't know what to do. You folded or you're all in. Why are you all in? Because you wanted to end the buildup of stress. The tide of cortisol had become too great, and you simply had to fight for your resources and try not to die. So this is very normal, that just as people really, really want to win, they really, really don't want to lose. And in my experience, this comes down to your reaction to losing. I have a very bad reaction to losing. I don't handle it well at all. I never have handled it well. I handle it better now than when I was a child, and I would trash the Monopoly board, or arrive at my grandparents' house and start playing a game with my cousins whom I hadn't seen for like a year and a half, and instantly get mad that I didn't win the first game and storm away upstairs sulking and shouting. I did this when I was like 6, right? But there are elements of this that are still alive within me today. And a few of my cousins, who I got on really well with these days, still laugh at me and see me as that sulking little kid. And to an extent, I still am, you know? Because I played this hand earlier, and I really didn't want to lose this hand. I didn't want to lose this pot. And it factored into my decision making. And I'll tell you why I didn't want to lose this pot. I was trying to record this video and play live at the same time, and I decided to abandon that because it was incredibly like distracting, and I was not speaking very eloquently, and I was getting the sense that this was not working out well even as I was recording the video. And because of that, I was feeling self-conscious and I was feeling insecure. And the more insecure about yourself you're feeling, the more you're going to dread losing, because losing's going to feel like, I quote from my article, a miniature death. When you lose a hand of poker, you're going to feel like you've died, or your stack has died, because it was all there and then it was all gone. Have you ever wondered why losing half a stack isn't half as bad exactly as getting stacked? It's less than half as bad. In other words, losing a whole stack is more than twice the pain of getting only stacked for half of it. That doesn't make sense, but losing 50 big blinds, let's say. It's true, right? If you think about it. Because we are survival-oriented creatures. We prioritize being able to live, to breed, and keep the DNA going, you know? Keep our genes going down to the next generation. That's our whole gig as a human. So when we're feeling threatened, insecure, vulnerable, like things aren't working out, that's when losing feels untenable. And if losing feels untenable, you're in a very dark place poker-wise. You're in a very, very bad situation. Because if a completely unacceptable thing could happen to you at any moment, you're not safe. And if you're not safe, your limbic system's kicking in and you're in fight, flight, or freeze, not relaxed thinking flow state, whether you need to be into playing well. So I'm ranting. I'm playing this video. I'm making this video. I'm getting distracted by hands. This hand comes up. And I'm feeling insecure about it because I'm like, man, am I wasting my time? I'm working to a really tight schedule at the moment, trying to get my new course, Weapons of War, done. All this stuff, right? It's just all stacking up. And so I get into this hand, I'm feeling harassed. I check the flop. I'm checking range here against the hijack cold caller. Didn't know the player. They're from the UK. That's all I knew. Generally, they're regs, but not always. I check raise the flop. Solver says this is not right. Like, it says that my hand is actually just too mediocre. They can 3-bet sometimes here. My hand is better as a call. Apparently, if I'm going to check raise the flop, I either need to have a hand like King, Queen, King, Jack that has 2 better overcards to more of their pocket pair region. I don't want to have the 10 and have an undercard to jacks and be sharing it with 10s. I should just call or fold here. I do think people stab too often when check 2 in this spot though, so I don't like despise the raise, but apparently it's not quite right. On the turn, I guess this is an okay hand to bluff now. The showdown value is really depleted. If we check, we'll end up losing the pot to all kinds of bluffs as well at some point here at a decent frequency. So I think bluffing turn here is all right. I don't mind it. And we river the 10. I decided it was too thin to bet here. Like, villains probably folding a lot of their 9s, 7s, etc. by the turn, if not on the flop. And their range at this point is probably just King, Queen of Hearts, King, Jack of Hearts, Ace, Queen of Hearts, Ace, Jack of Hearts type hands would be the air. Some Ace 4, Ace 5, 5, 6, 6, 7. Maybe, if they cold call those hands. And 8s, 5s, and 10s. So we face this. And I was just going to fold because my instinct was they've filtered multiple times. They're probably under bluffing. But then I remembered I raised the flop small. I unblock all heart heart, which does want to bluff this node, by the way. This is a node where our range folds like 85-90% of the time in GTO because we're doing the classic aggressing and then giving up on the end thing. We aren't meant to be meeting MDF when you do that, right? You're meant to be folding a ton. And my instinct was just like, this guy probably just has a set or ace 4, like, most of the time. But then I thought, the 10 blocks pocket 10s. The ace blocks ace 4. The ace doesn't block any bluffs. The 10 doesn't block any bluffs. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, guys. We have an opening. We have the perfect bluff catcher in a spot where we've opened the door. The looming demon that doesn't want to lose. And that demon knows that if we fold, we lose. That's certain. But it's not certain that we lose if we call. And if we call while making the video, we're going to have some good energy if we win, and then we're going to be able to make a great video, and I'm going to look cool, right? So we called. And villain had a set of 8s. And I'm not going to lie, I just stopped the recording, because I was like, this isn't working anyway. And I don't know if I played this hand well. And I'm feeling a bit insecure, and I really didn't want to lose. Not wanting to lose is a poker sin. Okay, calling it a sin's hard. It's a bit rough, because sin makes you feel like you've done something wrong, like you're some freak that's acted in some terrible way. But if you think about the 7 deadly sins, right, we go like biblical here. What are the 7 deadly sins? They're all natural human impulses. We're naturally gluttons. We want to be greedy because we want to eat while the food is there, because we know at some point in our evolutionary history it was more scarce. Jealousy. Envy is a useful way of comparing your status to others and understanding your place in the hierarchy and knowing how to compete or vie for resources. The 7 deadly sins are inherently useful and also very natural. And that's why I think calling wanting to win, not wanting to lose, and the third sin that we'll come to in a minute, sins is actually just the same as the 7 deadly sins. They're hardwired, right? And I'm not saying that someone who commits adultery 17 times, that's just cool. That's all right, man. You do that. It's natural. I'm not saying that. But there's a reason that the sins are, you know, kind of abundant. They're kind of like human impulses, a lot of them, if not all of them. So it's the same with poker. The 3 deadly poker sins are hardwired impulses. All right. So not losing. What can we do about this? We have to go through a lot of pain before we can be okay with this. You have to play a lot of poker and desensitize yourself to this. You have to really be able to focus on the decision making and be the EV robot here as well. Because the minute you get swept up in the result of a hand in the winning and losing, that's when you go to a very dark place where something that's unacceptable to you has happened to you. And you're in conflict. You're fighting for resources. That's what poker is. So if you do find yourself in a spot where you really don't want to lose, it's a good sign that you shouldn't be playing, that you're not playing your A game, that you're not focused on the objective. You're in a fight, flight, freeze mode. Don't put in a lot of volume in that sort of mode. I've known many students over the years who had some potential, were doing well for a while, and then like they hit a bad stretch and they play more and more and more, and it's a domino effect. Their game falls apart because the goal is now just to try to not lose. Monsters under the bed, tilt, feeling committed to pots, all sorts of stuff. Okay, so this hand didn't work out well for us. I wasn't able to really understand what the solver thought because, you know, it's one of these spots where we're not meant to get here with this hand on this node because we messed up, quote unquote, the flop. But anyway, let's move on to the third one. Sin number 3, deadly sin number 3 is poker's not all about money, but sin number 3 is thinking that it is all about money. This carrot man has 2 sets of upper teeth, for God's sake. 2 sets of upper teeth. This is totally unnecessary. What's the function of the upper set of teeth here? I don't know. But clearly he's obsessed with money because he's wearing some kind of collar tunic made of gold coins. It's like a medieval carrot man, maybe. Medieval king. Yeah, no. Not really good. Like, toothpaste Colgate wasn't a thing in those days. So we're very guilty of this. And it's very natural to think that poker's all about money. I've said here, poker is not about money. If you were playing for a made-up currency with no real-world value, then King 10-3 Rainbow would still be a good board for Cutoff's opening range. With the big blind caller, Queen Jack would still be a mix between call and raise on King 10-3 Rainbow when facing at c-bet, and if they called, a 10 turn would still allow for the construction of a donk bet range for big blind. So basically what we're saying is that the things that make poker poker, as opposed to bridge or chess, aren't actually the monetary association. It's not those things, because you could play chess for money or bridge for money. Okay, it wouldn't work because skill edge and a lack of variance in most of those games and blah, blah, blah. But they would still be chess and bridge if you played them for money, and poker is still poker if you play it for no money. So while it's useful to motivate you to play well that poker is for money, and it makes it a viable choice of career. Like, I couldn't do what I do if there was no money in poker because I couldn't make a training website. No one would be incentivized to spend money on getting better at poker, right? So I'm not denying that it's good that poker is played for money, but poker itself, the framework of logical structures that makes up poker, isn't about money. Consider this, lawyers make money, right? But the law isn't about money. The law is about allowing society to thrive via the formal construction of rules and repercussions for breaking them, or something like that. I quote me from earlier. What's the equivalent then for poker? Well, I've said here, I think poker's a strategy game made up of logical concepts. Whoever can consider best the right concepts at the right decision points, while understanding and reacting to their opponent's strategy in the correct way, will have the highest expectation in the game. So I think that's what poker is. And if we can try and keep sight of that when we're playing, we can stay away from being distracted by the season, right? Imagine the football team that's trying to win a game. You're a winger. You're playing for Man City. You want to win the Premier League. Should you be thinking about winning the Premier League while glancing up to see if there's someone available at the back post for you to cross the ball to? No, you should be using your muscles, your perception system in the right way, focusing on the here and now. So the here and now of poker is the strategy, not what you're down today, not like getting your money back. None of this matters. The money is a distraction. It's required that lawyers are paid money, right? Because if they weren't, they would have no motivation to work as a lawyer and practice law, and we wouldn't have a functional system of law in that case. And poker wouldn't be functional if it wasn't for money. But money has nothing to do with practicing law. Okay, there's financial law, but that's not what I'm talking about. So imagine how bad a lawyer would be if they thought about the money they were making every time they had a legal thought. If their decision about a client, about recommending a mortgage, about prosecuting a criminal, they were just thinking all the time, what money will this net me if I say this? What if I say that? Now, poker's different because, you know, you do literally win and lose money with the decisions you make in the short term. But in the long term, it functions just like any other job where you're paid a salary. There is a long-term expected salary from poker. And the ups and downs in the short term are distractions. And sometimes they're insane ups and downs that we just can't process because they're like that 120 seesaw graph that we looked at, the up and down graph. That's real, by the way. It was sent to me this morning, where the student was like, look, we're finally out of this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this is fucking great, man. I'm really happy for you, but oh my God, poker's insane, right? So I think this sin is when we let the functional properties of money, so the actual like outside value, what it means for our bankroll, moving up and down stakes, how many buy-ins are up or down. Sometimes this is about our life, like will we be able to afford to live, will we need to like get a job? But more often than not, it's actually about keeping score of the PT4 graph, of the buy-ins won or lost this year, of your self-worth. It's usually about keeping score of those things, not keeping score about money. Literal money, but it's the same thing. So to summarize, we have these deadly sins in reverse order. Don't make it all about money. It's not. Poker has nothing to do with money, it's just played for money. It's okay to lose. In fact, it's way more enjoyable if you don't beat the shit out of yourself and peel your own skin off when you lose. And if you can react to losing in a healthier way, you won't fear it as much, and then you won't be governed by the threat of it, this threat of an untenable thing happening to you that's unacceptable. When losing becomes acceptable, you can think straight. And finally, it's okay to prefer winning to losing, but when you sit down and your goal is to win and you really want to win, it's the wrong goal, and it's going to put you in the wrong mindset. Again, picture the robot on the conveyor belt. So this has been a bit of a weird video, not least because of these guys, these mascots, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I am going to go back into the lab and work more on weapons of war. I've recorded 6 episodes. I'm going to record the 7th one either later today or tomorrow. And I've learned a lot about the game in making this course. I'm super stoked to bring it to you on November 1st, guys. Weapons of War is coming. The Carrot Corner is 10 lines that should be in your poker toolkit that probably aren't. They're theoretically great. They're approved. They're solid. They make sense and they're exploitatively good too. It's coming to Carrot Corner on November 1st, 2024. All right, I'm going to go make a coffee. And then I've got a coaching session where I'm going to try and get the thought of these weird carrot images out of my head and act normally. All right, catch you later. Bye-bye.